The valley of Nkwashi hummed with life, the rhythmic thud of pestles, the laughter of children chasing goats through dusty lanes, the sweet sting of wood smoke curling up through the baobab trees. Traders shouted over one another in the marketplace. Drummers practiced under the great council tree. Life in Nkwashi moved like a river, constant, familiar, and full. Then she walked in, and the river stopped. It was an evening soaked in orange light when the children spotted her first, a lone figure gliding along the path toward the market square, as if the dust itself refused to touch her sandals. No cart, no servant. No bundle on her head. Nothing but the quiet confidence of someone who had never needed to announce herself. "Who is that?" whispered little Amara, gripping her friend's arm. Nobody answered. Nobody knew. Her name, she said, was Zara. And that was all she said. She was breathtaking. Her skin caught the last light of the sun like polished bronze. Her eyes, dark, still, deep, were the kind that made you feel she was seeing something beyond you. Her hair was braided tight and adorned with golden beads that shimmered when she moved, and her white garment flowed with patterns nobody in Nkwashi had ever seen. Delicate, curling, otherworldly. She rented a small hut at the edge of the village, bought her food quietly at market, spoke when spoken to, and refused to explain herself to anyone. The whispers started immediately. "A runaway princess?" hissed the women at the river. "A spirit wearing human skin," the old men muttered, side-eyeing their calabashes. She must be cursed, the traders decided, which didn't stop them from craning their necks to watch her pass. Within a month, word of the mysterious beauty had spread to every nearby kingdom. Within 2 months, suitors were arriving from lands so far away, the people of Nkwashi had never heard their names. First came Rashid of Timbara, a merchant so rich his camel wore silver bells. He rode into the village square like a conqueror, his sunset red robes billowing, and dropped a velvet pouch of gold bracelets at Zara's feet with the casual ease of a man who had never been told no. "I will make you my wife," he announced, loud enough for the whole market to hear. Zahara looked at the bracelets. Then she looked at him. "I will marry only the man who solves my riddle," she said pleasantly. Rashid laughed the laugh of a man who finds easy things amusing. "A riddle? Go on then." Zara folded her hands and spoke. "I am born every morning. I grow without eating. I die every night without bleeding. Kings cannot command me, yet the poorest child can chase me away. Tell me, what am I?" The silver bells on Rashid's camel jingled softly in the silence that followed. The merchant scratched his jaw. He tugged his beard. He squinted at the sky as if the answer might be written in the clouds. His lips moved. Sweat beaded at his temples. He rode away before sundown, eyes fixed straight ahead, jaw tight, not looking at anyone. And so began the great parade of the defeated. Warriors came next, tall men with leopard skin cloaks and polished spears, who heard the riddle, frowned mightily, and left just as mightily. Then princes in gilded carriages, scholars with towers of scrolls, and hunters who could track a leopard through wet grass, but couldn't follow this puzzle to its end. The riddle spread like fire in dry season. Travelers carried it across rivers and mountains. Merchants traded it at crossroads. Children recited it to one another on dusty paths, giggling and shrugging. The elders argued about it beneath the council tree until their tea went cold. 2 years passed, 2 whole years, and the answer stayed hidden. People began to say Zara was toying with them all. Some said she had no intention of marrying anyone, that the riddle was unsolvable by design, a beautiful trap. Others said she was waiting for someone, though no one could say who. Kato heard the riddle on a warm evening, crouched by a fire outside his hut at the edge of Nkwashi, turning an ear of maize slowly over the coals. He was, by every worldly measure, unremarkable. His farm was small, his hut modest, his clothing simple cotton dyed the blue of the evening sky. He had no camel, no gold, no titles. What he had were 2 things, a habit of listening and a habit of watching. He spent his evenings with the old storytellers, the ones whose voices crackled like fire, whose proverbs carried the weight of lifetimes. He believed, truly believed, that wisdom was worth more than silver. So, when the travelers around his fire recited Zara's riddle and shook their heads, Cato said nothing. He didn't reach for an answer right away. He just listened, turned his maze, watched the fire, then he started watching the world. At dawn, he sat still at the edge of his farm and watched the sun drag itself over the hills. He noticed what arrived with it. At midday, he watched the village children running and shrieking in the fields, their shapes stretching away from them across the earth. At sunset, he watched those shapes grow long and lean, reaching toward the east like fingers pointing at something just out of sight. And then, as the light finally failed, he watched them vanish. No cry, no blood, just gone. Cato sat back, and very slowly, he smiled. A week later, he walked into the village square. Word had somehow spread before he arrived, as word always does in small places, and the villagers came out to watch. They lined the path to Zara's hut in murmuring clusters, arms folded, eyes skeptical. The farm boy? Someone scoffed. He doesn't even own a good pair of sandals, another pointed out. Cato walked on, unhurried. Zara came to her doorway when she heard the crowd. Her eyes moved over him slowly, the worn cloth, the dusty feet, the quiet face, and she raised an eyebrow. "You've come for the riddle." "I have," said Cato. She studied him a moment longer, then nodded once and spoke the words for what must have been the 1,000th time, her voice as calm and steady as still water. When she finished, the square went completely silent. Even the market, always loud, always restless, seemed to hold its breath. Cato looked at the ground, then at the sky, then at the long shape stretching behind him in the afternoon sun. He spoke. "A shadow." The crowd stirred. A few people blinked. "A shadow is born the moment the sun rises," Cato said, his voice clear and unhurried. "It grows long without ever eating a single grain. At night it disappears, not with a wound, not with a cry, just gone. No king has ever commanded his shadow to stay, but any child, running into the shade, can make it vanish in an instant." The valley was utterly still. Zara did not move. Then her face changed, and the change was remarkable. Not the composed, polite smile she had given every other suitor. This was something else entirely. This was relief. As if a breath she had been holding for 2 years had finally been released. "You are correct," she said quietly. The square erupted. Cheers, laughter, drumming that seemed to start from nowhere and everywhere at once. People clapped Cato on the back. Children danced in the dust. But Zara raised her hand, and the crowd fell silent again. She turned to the gathered elders and spoke words that struck the valley like a thunderclap. "I am not who you think I am." She drew herself up to her full height, and the air around her seemed to shift, as if even the light was adjusting to show her properly. "I am Princess Zara of Lumwe, the hidden kingdom beyond the eastern mountains." Gasps swept through the crowd like wind through tall grass. "My father, the king, decreed that I must marry a man of wisdom," she continued. "Not wealth, not strength, not beauty or title or conquest. Wisdom. So I came here in secret, with only a riddle to guide me." She looked at Cato. Fully, directly. "You are the first man who chose patience over pride. You did not guess. You did not perform. You observed. That is the rarest thing I have found in 2 years of searching." She paused. "If you will accept, you will return with me to Lumwe as my husband." They left with the reins. The procession that crossed the mountains was unlike anything Nkwashi had ever seen. Royal escorts in deep indigo, war drums that shook the hillsides, banners catching the mountain wind, and at the center of it all, riding side by side a princess who had outweighted every suitor in 3 kingdoms, and a farmer's son from the edge of the valley who had learned to watch the ground before he spoke. When Lumwe came into view, its towers rising above the tree line, its people flooding the roads with song, Cato didn't flinch. He had known, perhaps, what the shadow had always known. That greatness is not about where the light falls, it's about what you see when you pay close enough attention. The elders of Nkwashi told that story for generations, always ending it the same way, with 3 truths worn smooth from being passed hand to hand across the years. Beauty may attract many, but wisdom wins the heart. Patience sees what pride cannot, and true greatness does not come from where you are born, but from the wisdom you carry inside you.